So let's talk about some actual, some research-based approaches. Again, talking about science of reading. So a couple of questions I find interesting. Katz, looking at the synthesis of research, concluded that comprehension's not really a thing. It's a combination of a bunch of little things. And Cromley and Acevedo looked at it more specifically, and they found these 5 things. Number 1 and number 2, they were basically tied and way ahead of all the rest with background knowledge and vocabulary. That if a child comprehends or doesn't, it's basically due to their background knowledge and vocabulary. Number 3 was inferencing about reading. Can they do correct inferencing? Number 4 was, can they read the words? And number 5 was strategy use. Now, the reason I point this out is if a child struggles with with comprehension, 9 times out of 10, what do? Teach them strategies. These data suggest that may not be the way to go. They might need something, more specific. In fact, oftentimes you're better off teaching the kid how to read the word than you are teaching them a strategy. Now, don't hear me say don't teach comprehension strategies. Oh my gosh, it's very important. But that may not be what some kids need. Fluency matters. There's some conversation now about does reading fluency really matter, and is repeated reading an effective intervention? Reading fluency is highly related to comprehension. 72 studies, meta-analysis, average correlation of 0.67. That's a correlation now. A meta-analysis of repeated reading, 34 studies, found an effect of 1.41. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you probably do, but if you don't, I'm going to show you right now my YouTube channel. Assuming I can find it again. I'm not sure why it's not showing up since I just shared it. I just shared that. Why is it not showing up? Give me a second, please. Let's try this one. Good. Okay. So here's my YouTube channel. You just search Matthew Burns in YouTube, I come up. There's a whole bunch of videos. This one I just did yesterday. I do some interviews of people when they do research, and I interviewed them to talk about what the study means and how people can interpret it do like a 10, 20-minute video for people to just watch and understand the research. And we just did one yesterday on the meta-analysis of Orton Gillingham. But anyway, I also have lots of demonstrations of different interventions. So I have here, where are you? I thought it was right there. Oh, here it is. Repeated reading. Here's repeated reading on Zoom, how to do it remotely. So if you're in a situation where you're having to work with a kid remotely, there's a demonstration of how to do that. Here is one. There's others on there. Just look down. There's others of repeated reading as well. There's probably 2 or 3 on there, how to do repeated reading. I won't take time to look for it. But repeated reading is basically, you have the kid read a passage, a cold read, write down the number of words they read correctly, and graph that, have them practice 3, 4 times, then do a hot read and see how much they go up. That's basically it in a nutshell. And we see that it has a large effect on reading fluency, and also has a large effect of 0.93, I think it is, on transfer passages. There are other non-repetitive approaches. So in other words, instead of having a kid read the same passage 5 times, have them read 5 different passages, 1 time each. 8 studies have looked at that, so partner reading type things. You see a smaller effect, 0.18. Now that's in comparison to repeated reading. So it's not any better than repeated reading. You do see a little bit better generalization though. And then this is the What Works Clearinghouse website about fluency. So I won't take time to show you that. Let me show you one more resource before I move on from this. So here's my YouTube channel. But if you go to ReadWorks, if you're not familiar with ReadWorks, readworks.org, I highly encourage you to check it out. I forgot to log in, so I'll log in real quickly. It has thousands of reading passages. That's the right password. Okay, good. So there's thousands of passages, and you can sort these passages by type, by difficulty level. Oh, here we go. Yeah, by type, by difficulty, by grade, by topic, by lexile, and so if you know your kid's instructional level, or some other way you want to get passages. Let's just say you want to look at all these that are like in this lexile range. I just randomly picked a couple there, and you click on one. I'm just randomly picking on one, and you can get this and download it as a PDF. So if you want repeat, people spend money on repeated reading. I never understand that, with one exception. It's free. Just go get a bunch of good passages off readworks.org. It's all free. So there's a couple of resources, but let's talk about come back to the idea of phonemic awareness interventions for older kids. The National Reading Panel said that PA training was by far the largest for students in preschool. Kindergarten was significantly larger than first grade and significantly larger than second through sixth grade. So you saw large effects for preschool, by far the largest in preschool, still good effects for kindergarten, but small effects beyond kindergarten. They said, quote, the findings indicate that younger students gained the most from phonemic awareness. Transfer of PA to spelling was greater among kindergartners than among second graders. There was no transfer among second and third graders. The effect size was basically 0. Several studies have shown most kids, even struggling readers, develop phonemic awareness by second grade. Longitudinal research with the recent study with Powell and Atkinson, longitudinal research, 91 kids, struggling readers, all non-readers, assessed 3 times. Time 1 and 2, phonemic awareness predicted word reading. By time 3, it predicted only reading accuracy. So as the kids got older, it did a poor job of predicting. It didn't predict alphabetic decoding, didn't predict lexical, didn't predict orthographic, didn't predict anything. This is among struggling readers. Just finished a study myself. This is under review right now. We looked at 93 struggling readers. This is the average C-top score. This is an age-based norm reference score. Average is about 100, but the average range starts around 90. This is the standard score. Kindergarten, the phonemic awareness test of the C-top, they were low. The average score is like, an 82 or something? First grade is about an 89, but look at second and third grade. Among the struggling readers, they scored in the average range on this measure of phonemic awareness. It was a significant effect and large effect. The correlation between phonemic awareness and reading skills in kindergarten was 0.35. Good, still not huge, but good. Number of students who scored low in phonemic awareness were at 83%. First grade went down to 0.19. 53% of the struggling readers were low in phonemic awareness. But by second and third grade, the correlations are 0.27 and negligible, down to 5 or 6 kids. So again, in third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, you might find the occasional kid who still struggles with phonemic awareness. I'm saying PA is not a good tier 2 intervention beyond kindergarten, possibly even first grade. So I know there's several published books and things that are talking about phonemic awareness interventions of 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders. That's probably a waste of time. You're probably doing more harm than good because you're not focusing on what the kid actually needs. Heggerty, wonderful tool. It's a supplemental instruction approach. It's not an intervention. It tries to do too much. It does too much to work. It doesn't have enough repetition. It does too much. A lot of kids who struggle with reading, when you do Heggerty, get lost during it. If your school in kindergarten and first grade doesn't do a good job of teaching phonemic awareness, use it. Although I'd still encourage you to think about breaking it up in smaller increments, then their lessons are covered too much. But as a tier 2 intervention, I can't endorse that at all. It's not designed to do that. And I think they might agree with me. I think the publishers might agree with me. Go buy it. Yes, use it in kindergarten for all your kids, certainly. But once you identify as a struggling reader, you probably need to use something else. So I'm going to show you something else, something else's. Not sure if that's a word, but I'll say it. So with kindergarten and first grade, I tend to use Road to Decode a lot. And I don't have Road to Decode with me right now because I think I've signed out to one of my doc students and they're off, helping kids with it. Well, here's another good one. It's called Phonological Awareness. You can see the author and such right there. I don't know this person. I don't know how to say that either. Zigonk, maybe, Yvette. It's an intervention program for phonemic and phonological awareness. It's heavy phonemic awareness. It says phonological, but it's heavy phonemic, in my opinion. It's $30 on Amazon. Again, I don't know if this has ever been studied, but the instructional approaches used in it, there's dozens of studies. Okay, that's the difference. Road to Decode has been studied. So let's look at, now decoding, a wonderful decoding intervention. Where the heck was it? Oh, here it is. Sound partners. This has been studied. It's rated really well in the National Center for Intensive Intervention. The first author is Vadasy, V-A-D-A-S-Y. Probably not saying it right. Sound partners, really great tool. It comes with a tutoring book as well and an implementation manual. It's cheap. It's on Amazon for like $30-40. Good decoding intervention. Older kids, that's only for younger kids. Older kids, I use rewards. I need an Archer's program. written by Anita Archer. Rewards. It's a decoding intervention written explicitly for kids 4th grade and above. Man, if you're working in middle school, high school, please get this. It's a wonderful tool. Half your kids who are struggling readers still need basic decoding in middle school, high school. It's a great, and I'm not saying that arbitrarily. I have studies to support that. The only problem is this one's fairly expensive. So it's a lot more than it used to be. It used to be cheap and easy. It comes with a consumable student book as well. But you can buy them on Amazon, get the older versions of them for it's much cheaper and about the same thing. There are differences, but the differences are not that important. This costs a fraction of the price of the new one and probably will work just as well. If Fluency, if you want to buy something, I use Read Naturally quite a bit. Now, the reason I think the research says Read Naturally that wasn't as effective as I'd like to see is that everyone uses it as an intervention for all kids. No, it's a Fluency intervention. If your kid struggles with decoding, this will not help. If your kid struggles with comprehension, this probably will not help. But if your kid struggles with fluency, this does. Now, the two advantages of this is you just buy it and use it. You don't have to get passages and all that. Second of which is you can have multiple kids doing this at once because it has a headphone system and so on. But if you're just doing repeated reading with a kid, don't buy this. Do it for free with readworks.org. And then lastly, comprehension. Reciprocal teaching. Reciprocal teaching has been around since about '84. Dozens of studies on it. Finally, a few years ago, this woman who I don't know, OCZKUS, don't know this person, was smart enough to write a book. I wish I would have thought of it. I'm so jealous. It's a great little tool, and it's a program. Step one, day one, do this. Day two, do this, etc. So those are research-based programs. My preference is still not to buy anything. You don't need to buy anything to do any of these, but to intervene for any of these areas. But if you want to purchase a program to make it easy to use, don't spend a lot of money and make sure it matches what the kids need. Man, you give me like $500. I can buy a good intervention program for an entire school. You give me the cost of one LLI program. Oh my gosh, I can get you a good intervention system. So we find out what the kid, match your interventions to what the sort of the 4 big areas, and then figure out what the kid needs, and then just match them up. It's really that simple. And I do this through 8th grade. Arguably, this is through high school with some differences, maybe, but I'm using rewards in high school. I'm using 6-minute solution or Read Naturally, and I'm probably using reciprocal teaching in high school as well. There are other more intensive approaches, but this is tier 2. This is tier 2. So this is not designed to help every child who's a struggling reader. It's designed to help most kids who are a struggling reader. So go back to your schools and look at what you have. Someone says, if we differentiate our interventions, I would love to do rewards. Yes, you have to differentiate. I agree. Rewards is not right for every kid either. Someone messages that their child is using 1-minute activities for an upper elementary student, is wondering what you think of that. I think it's probably a waste of time. Now, with younger kids, if they need decoding, if you want to do a 1-minute phonemic awareness warm-up, great, fine, that's okay. If you're gonna spend 15 minutes of intervention time, and by the way, 15 to 20 minutes is plenty of time to do an intervention. If you want to take 1 minute of that to do a warm-up, great, go for it. You can do it almost wherever you want. You want to do a reading game, do whatever, sound game, I don't care. Hit the decoding for 14 minutes, 13 minutes, whatever, 15 minutes, and then you want to do a warm down game type thing for another minute or two, great, go for it. But if that's their intervention, that's probably not the right approach. And with an older kid, upper elementary, it's possible that they might still struggle with phonemic awareness. I think that's what it's talking about. That's possible, but not likely. So chances are that's probably not going to be helpful. So we target the intervention to what the kid needs. That's really, and then there's lots of interventions. Just make sure it's what it actually addresses that area. And that's actually the kid's core deficit. There are lots of other good instructional approaches for which there's lots of studies. If you're working middle school and you have kids who struggle with content area, look at promoting acceleration of comprehension and content through text, PACT. Several studies, I highlighted one here, but there's like 10 of them now. In fact, I probably should do a meta-analysis on this. Average effect size 0.59. All randomized experimental designs. Small effects on comprehension, on overall comprehension. This is moderate to large effect on content knowledge understanding increases. Small effects in comprehension. But given that that's not teaching comprehension, any effect on overall general reading comprehension is not, that's good. I'm intrigued by the new project-based learning approach. Now Duke's doing work on. Research has pretty clearly shown project-based learning is moderate at best. but she's seeing effects like similar to what we see in PACT, a little less for social studies understanding. Informational reading again about a 0.18. So you see some growth in just general comprehension as well. So there are options to look at. I encourage you to look at PACT as a potential for content instruction. All right. So science of reading. Look at the research. Look at experimental investigations. Look at the accumulation of studies. You can look at meta-analyses or other syntheses as well. Then use data to target what the kids need and match the intervention to what they need. And there's lots of good, well-researched interventions out there to do so. Okay. Stop there and see if you have any questions. And I can't remember put my Twitter handle on the first slide or not. There's my email address. If people want to talk more about this, or if I can support your efforts in any way, you can just email me. Let's see, I put my Twitter handle on the first slide. So it's at Burns1K, at BurnsMK1, at BurnsMK1. Tweet me, message me, email me. I'll try and respond. I'm pretty active on social media. So if I can support you, if you have more questions, want to talk more about this, please let me know.
This was really great. Any other questions out there? I'm just going to wait a second in case you're typing one in the chat, but you can certainly also unmute yourself. I don't see anybody raising their hand or jumping up and down.
This has been a fun conversation. I really applaud your efforts for taking this on. Science of reading is like the new buzzword, but it's become one of those things where it's become almost meaningless because it's used so much. And when really implemented, when we really use science of reading to modify our practice, it's not easy. It can be done, it can be efficient, and more importantly, it's how you see good results. So I really applaud this group for taking this on.
I just want to mention a few more things. Erica's going to put, she doesn't know it yet, but she's going to put our Facebook page in the chat. We do have a NDSOR Facebook page where we let you know about these kind of events and other events that are low cost or available to you all. That's one way that we're communicating. And then we have a couple more events coming up. If you haven't heard about, we're doing a curriculum fair, an ELA curriculum fair at the end of March. So we've got that on March 30th. There's currently a book study. I think there are a few spots open in our book study. Know Better, Do Better is the book that Erica Carney is leading a book study virtually about. We have letters for administrators and registration is open for that right now. And we're working on the content for that, but we're really hoping to give administrators, not only for those of you who are in letters training this year, a review of the Unit 1 or Volume 1, Units 1 through 4 that you did this year, but a preview into what you'll learn next year. And so we've got letters for administrators. We're going to kick them off April 1st, and then their face-to-face day is May with some learning management system in between. And then the last thing that I'll tell you about is our letters for next year, our cohorts that are working on Volume 1 and starting with that, as well as Volume 2. We've got our dates picked, so we're just working on getting registration open for that. So if you're waiting to see registration, you should see that in the next week or so for letters for next year. I do see we do have another question in the chat. Ruth is asking a good core curriculum for whole class reading or whole class ELA. We hope we chose the right ones for our curriculum first. So that's a good question to answer.
I shouldn't comment then. So the good news is if you're using a published curriculum, most of them are pretty good now. Thanks to the National Reading Panel, over the past 20 years, most curricula have done a good job of catching on to this. I'm still going to encourage you to consider using Heggerty and building in explicit decoding instruction. But if it's a major one, the Houghton Mifflins of the world, the Harcourt Braces, the whatever, Open Court is still the best one in my opinion. It does the best job of explicit instruction, but any of those sort of major ones are usually okay. When you start getting into balanced literacy without a curriculum, which is not by definition a bad thing, it's really hard to do, and most people don't incorporate systematic instruction well enough in it. So if you're using a published one, it's in one of the major ones, you're probably going to be okay. Where you get into difficulties when you get some of the lesser known ones, less research-based ones, and you don't use a curriculum.
I happened to, remember at the last minute to bring treats for my son's birthday this morning at school, and was walking through the hallway with a teacher who's excited to start on her letters journey next year.
Good.
And the thing that we were talking about was that a lot of the published curriculums have so many things available that a teacher couldn't possibly get through all of the material in the time allotted. And so teachers have to make decisions. And I think Letters is helping us make better decisions about which are the things to cut and which are the things that we have to keep in. And so my comment, Ruth, about curriculum resources is there's one that we will be previewing because it does follow the science of reading. And there is so much in it. Like, it's such a robust curriculum. Like, it certainly follows the science of reading. It also allows for balanced literacy practices if you wanted to do that. It also has so much that you're really going to have to be tight on your PLC within grade levels of which parts are the non-negotiables, which parts have to be done, and which parts are nice to do if you have extra time. And so I think that's one of the things to keep in mind with a lot of these resources as well, is that yes, it's arguably like follow science of reading, right? But like, there's so much there that how do you decide which parts to use? So that will also be a part of our conversation at the end of the month. We are inviting teams to come to that curriculum fair just so that they can have those kind of conversations about, like, if we chose this, what would we need to do to prepare our staff to be able to deliver this in a systematic manner? Because that's another really important part of that.